What's up, Gary? So, I just quit my job at radio after being on air since I was 16 years old and kind of risked everything for this new Dash Radio app. I hope you've checked it out. You gotta tell me your favorite station. But what was the riskiest thing you've ever done in your career? Because it was tough for me to leave something I've been at for so long, especially an institution like traditional radio, in order to try something new with 0 listeners today to disrupt that industry. What was the toughest choice you ever made in your life or in business about leaving something that you've done to do something new?
Again, the enormous excitement I have behind doing this show, and thank you all for allowing me to do this show, is predicated on the fact that I get to tell you things you've never heard before. I'm going to say something that I've never, ever have talked about before, which is the toughest professional thing I've ever done. My cliche answer historically has been, leaving the wine library, which is my first love, and that's a very big truth. But as I've started becoming a little bit more in tune with my own feelings and have given this thought, the toughest thing I ever had to do, and Steve, pay attention, you're gonna like this answer. Toughest thing I ever had to do, believe it or not, was make the decision that I was okay with putting myself out there. A lot of you probably have at this point forgotten, because the GaryVee persona and narrative has taken over my career and my Wikipedia and things of that nature. But the first 10 to 15 articles that have ever been written about me in the AP, in the New York Times, in the Wall Street Journal was WizKid Bill's business. That the establishment, the business world, the people that I look up to in ways, maybe not specifically because I don't really have heroes, but like respect their opinions and their accomplishments. I went from the narrative of being a great business operator that saw trends and executed it for financial gain, which is like something everybody deems to be so noble in business, to being a self-promoter, to being a social media guru, to being an author, making the decision that I could accept the rolling of the eyes of the Ivy League grads or the establishment, to get bigger reach, to build audience, to jam with people, to be human and extroverted, and taking that step back, or 2 or 3, in the minds of the top 2 or 3%, was a pretty interesting, difficult decision for me, knowing what the consequences were of putting myself out there and that I would be respected less for my business accomplishments because of it. Wasn't the easiest thing that I ever had to deal with, and something that, very honestly, I still continue to deal with. Now, this is where you start getting into, I don't know, D-Rock, if you want to make it dark, but this is when you start getting into the darkness of it. In a weird way, I like the underestimation that comes along with it as well, because the truth is, the reason that entrepreneurship and business speaks to me, especially in an American context, is that the truth is undefeated. That ultimately, if I go and execute multiple $100 million businesses and make smart investments, it's all net, right? Like, you may not like the fact that I don't dress up, or that I curse on stage, or that I self-promote, or whatever you want to call it, but if I execute, you just have to eat it. And so that was clearly, DJ, that was clearly the toughest thing for me, which was that I was consciously self-aware that I was entering a realm where I would start becoming more disrespected, even though my accomplishments were going to be greater. That mispositioning was something that was tough.